GoElectric here, and we are at the Fully Charged live show, and I have with me here Chris George. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thank you.
He's in charge of the US EV market here. So, Chris, let's get right into this because I'm so fascinated about what you guys are doing, because yes, there is the big overarching umbrella of Octopus Energy, but your focus is in electric vehicles for your division. So I really want to get into, tell us what that is all about and why you guys are coming here and focusing on proliferating through the United States.
Sure. So, great question. We're starting in Texas, a really interesting market. Interesting for a couple of reasons. We have an advantageous, energy environment. We are in places where some of the most compelling and exciting EVs are coming to market in the truck space. The trucks, in particular, the Ford F-150, number one selling vehicle forever.
Period.
Period. If you can't electrify that, you can't electrify anything.
Yeah.
And so we're starting in Texas, we're starting big, and we are currently in Houston and Dallas. And recently we've launched a business called the EV Concierge, and we help people find the EVs they want, and then we go find it for them. We lease it to them as an energy company, keep in mind.
Sure.
We lease it to them, and then we white glove service the entire delivery. We help you package in, get an EV charger installed, and then get you in an amazing energy plan backed by 100% renewables.
Awesome. So you picked Texas, it sounds like, for a very particular reason. It is known to be the big energy state because you got gas and oil, but you also have big energy companies in the electricity realm. So give us a little bit more insight on the particulars of this. How are you finding these? What are the qualifications you're helping to find people or find EVs for people, for your customers?
Sure. And actually, I come from, prior to Octopus EV, I was running the City of Houston's public-private partnership for transportation electrification. So we saw that as the number one lever to address air quality in the region, electrify the transportation sector, remove tailpipe emissions, make the air beautiful for our kids and our families ongoing, right? And what we saw was that adoption was creeping from that 1% to 1.5% to 2%. It's now since doubled relatively over the past year or so. And what we're seeing is that as more models flood the market, we're finding a lot of interest across the board. And particularly, I do bring up the truck market. It's 50% of the vehicle miles traveled in Texas.
Especially in Texas.
It's huge, right? You've got F-150 Lightning deliveries happening. You've got Rivian deploying vehicles. You've got GM with their Silverado coming to the market very soon. It's super exciting. But further, we need these compact and crossover SUVs to really address, I think, adoption in our region. And we're seeing interest across the board, obviously in the Teslas of the world. We're seeing Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6 as massively beautiful, popular cars. They're overtaking, I think.
Yep.
And they meet the needs of families like mine. I've got 3 kids, right? They meet the needs of my family and all the families around Texas. And so, we're really bullish on the fact that when Texas decides that something makes sense economically, it takes off. And so I think we're seeing that, and we're about to see kind of that J-stick hockey curve happen. That's right.
Even in Texas, that's what's exciting about it, is that you would think that is the state that is going to resist a lot, and we've seen it already. But this is why we need more companies and more proliferation of this new technology in a place where there typically resistance is, to try to educate people enough to get to the point where they feel comfortable and that it suits their lifestyle. Like you said,
Absolutely.
This is one of the more important facts about the reality of the EV marketplace, is that we need more options to fill the gap for more people. It needs to be able to support their lifestyle.
That's right.
And so what I think is really cool is that you guys are providing a service from end to end. So can you talk a little bit more, you said, on the charging station side of things? Get in a little bit more detail on what that looks like for the customer journey.
Absolutely. And so, customer is at the center of everything we do at Octopus. That's why our business has become so wildly popular in the UK. If you look at NPS scores and customer satisfaction ratings, Octopus sits above just about every other company in the world, right? For whatever reason, our customers, I think, really like us. We really like our customers, and we want to invest in them, right? So, that being said, when we deliver a vehicle, we're not only just delivering a vehicle, we are making sure to our best ability that you have a charger set up in your house. We actually go and facilitate the installation. So we call the electrician, we schedule it, we show up, we deliver the charger for you, we install it, and then we also set any sort of charging parameters that might be required. In addition to that, one of the kind of neat things that we're doing, I think nobody's done it, is we put your electric vehicle lease on your energy bill. And what that allows us to do is provide our customers, if they opt in to using our service called Intelligent Octopus, which manages charging intelligently, if they opt into that, it typically provides our customers with a 20 to 30% discount on their energy charge on a per kilowatt hour. And what that amounts to is pretty significant savings on a monthly basis for the entire household.
So are you seeing like a particular vehicle that people are going for already that, like, give us an example of like what that would look like for the customer for pricing,
Sure.
like lease-wise, like is there like a Nissan Leaf or as you're saying, like an F-150 Lightning, now they're starting to get into customers' hands. Like give us an example of what that cost would look like.
Sure. I mean, our
It
price
varies probably.
Yeah, no, it varies on the vehicle. We are competitive with all the other leasing financial institutions, dealerships out there. We do work with the dealerships to source vehicles. We love working with everyone in the ecosystem. But essentially, we offer a very core service to EV. If you don't have energy, you can't charge your EV. Mm-hmm. And what it would cost getting down to it, go look on Edmunds, on any of the the US-based websites for looking at EV leases, residual values, etc., and we essentially match those prices. So I can give you direct, if you give me a model, make and model, I can tell you what a lease would be, depending upon whether or not you want a 2-year lease, a 3-year lease, 10,000 miles, etc.
Yeah, very cool.
But I will say, one thing we are seeing, which is kind of interesting, is that a lot of the people who want to adopt an EV, they want to adopt it as like a city commuter car, mm-hmm. And they're looking for lower mileage leases.
Probably especially right now in the marketplace because it's even just hard to get a car at this moment in time.
It is really hard. I jokingly,
have you guys been struggling with that?
I jokingly say it's like the first, second, and third most challenging aspect of leasing vehicles right now.
Just getting the cars.
Yeah, because people want them. They really do want them. But it's hard to get them,
Yeah, it's limited inventory, shortages right now, but we will push through it. It's
absolutely
a matter of time, so
absolutely.
We're going to get past it. Now, tell me a little bit about, do you guys take advantage of bidirectional charging? Like, what's your stance on that? And do you communicate that with the customer if that's an option for them at this point?
So, yes, our take is that that's the future. You'll talk to in a little bit Fiona, our CEO of Octopus Electric Vehicles. Her team and Claire, who's in attendance here, has done an incredible V2G pilot in the UK called Power Loop. It's amazing. So we're all on board with that. You can go check it out, Power Loop, Octopus Electric Vehicles. There are customers who geek out about this stuff, and they go do their own YouTube videos talking about how their consumption was moved, shifted. At Octopus, we have a solar buyback program where we can facilitate selling energy back to the grid in that capacity.
Yeah.
So you imagine plugging in a vehicle, having some sort of mobilized storage, whether you want to do it at your house or deploy it somewhere else. There's a huge opportunity in the future for, obviously, I live in Houston, right? So thinking about resilience, somehow moving demand, being flexible with your demand, moving that around, but also creating a potential revenue generating opportunity for our customers. We're not there yet, and you don't want to overcomplicate, getting people into an EV just yet. But people are thinking about this. We're thinking about it deeply, and it's obviously on our roadmap at some point.
That's really cool, because I think that's what Initially, people get in and adopt electric vehicles because, either it's a better performing car or the total cost of ownership makes sense. But we're getting closer and closer to a marketplace where we're actually going to start seeing it become a source of investment for people, because what they're going to be able to do is use services like your guys's and get a little bit money back on their energy being taken out of their vehicle to help support the grid in the meantime. And a lot of people ask about grid resiliency, so
it's a
he's
big
already
deal.
laughing.
It's a big deal, yeah.
So give me your insights on that. Because Texas has had famous blackouts and issues with their energy, so talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you.
People want to know.
Yeah, in July, I believe it was July, we had 3 days in a row where we exceeded demand for the entire state, like the history of the state. 3 days in a row. We have people move, people are not just moving from places around the country to Texas. They're moving to Houston and Dallas in particular, which is where our markets are, right? They're moving in droves, millions of people. So, you take away EVs and you just say add 1 million, 2 million new people to the grid, that presents a little bit of problems, right? Now in Texas, we do generate an incredible amount, an incredible amount of wind energy and other renewable energy, and we've got an incredible amount in the queue, right?
Yeah.
And so we're actually, I would say, a global leader in renewables, which is maybe shocking to a lot of people who don't live in Texas,
Absolutely.
Of course. But from a resilience perspective, we had Hurricane Harvey a couple years back. We've had rolling blackouts. We had a freeze, a terrible freeze. I mean,
I'm used to that because I'm from Michigan, but
we're not used to it. That is
You're
for
not
sure.
used to that.
And we're really, I think, we're feeling climate change pretty tremendously, and it's all the way up through the state of Texas. So, EVs, we think, provide a real opportunity for, again, as I said earlier, shifting load, shifting demand. I think we have some really creative ways. The market and the industry has been thinking about it very creatively. And as the technology kind of catches up with UL certified chargers, with these bigger battery vehicles like the Lightnings that can power your home for X number of days. Don't know which type of home, because we've got big homes in Texas, it seems.
Yes.
But
everything's big in Texas.
yeah, that's right. But I think there's tremendous opportunity, right? And we just don't know yet. We're participating, at the PUC level in some of these types of discussions and pilots even, and you can go read about it on PUC's website, of course. But we think there's there. We're playing it deeply. Yeah.
It's the long game. That's what we definitely want to keep remembering, is that this is a progress that we're shifting to. Well, Chris, thanks so much for joining us. We're not leaving yet, so stay tuned, guys, because right now we're going to do a quick switch, and we're going to welcome the CEO of Octopus Electric Vehicles coming up next. This is going to be Fiona Howarth.
She's great.
She's great.
Oh, yeah.
Chris can confirm.
Thank you.
So, all right, let's have Fiona come in. Welcome in, Fiona.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
So
Thank
much
you.
for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. This is so
such a
wonderful.
pleasure. Yes, and so nice to be here and to be chatting with you.
This is pretty fun. You are the CEO of the electric vehicles division of Octopus.
Yep, that's right.
Which I think is super cool because she's a female, guys, and she's running the show. So tell us a little bit about your role and what you're covering and trying to achieve, especially coming here in the United States, because that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's super exciting. So we try to make everything as easy as possible for people to make that switch to EVs. So some of the amazing work that you do, for example, is introducing people to the cars, getting them excited about it, helping them think about what it might be like to charge, to get a charger at home maybe, or if they need to public charging, all those kind of things. We've got teams of experts now that can help people do that on a one-to-one basis, and then we can help them get set up at every step of the way. So we can lease them the car, we can install the charge point, and we can give them a clever EV tariff so that they can charge up in the middle of the night for much less of the cost. And as you know, it's much better for the grid, as you've just been talking to Chris about.
Absolutely, and I do want to talk a little bit more about that in a bit too.
Yeah, and that's it. So we're taking it that step further, where we now do the power loop trial of the vehicle to grid as well, where we can then store the energy in the car battery and give it back to the grid. And then if you don't have a driveway though, in the UK we also, in fact across Europe now, have a single charge card that you can use at over 300,000 charge points across Europe.
Oh, interesting.
So it's aggregated across over 15 different networks, including the likes of Ionity, Osprey, Shell New Motion, and a bunch of different networks. And then it just means that you can use them at lots of different places. And as you know, it's been quite a challenge, particularly in the UK. They've had over 20 different charging networks that have sprung up. Like, how many apps do you need? Do you need cards, like multiple cards in your car at once? And actually, just it makes it so much more simple.
And so this is an interesting point because, you know, the UK has a very high EV adoption rate in comparison to us in the United States. You guys, I feel like, are so far ahead of us. So can you give us a little bit of insight on that, for one, but also the fact that now you're ready to come into this market, and, you know, what were your learnings from developing what you've developed so far overseas and bringing them, like, why do you think this market is so critical?
So I think there's a couple of things. One is, certainly the UK is picking up. We're about 15% deliveries this year now at EVs, which is fantastic. But I think we'll come back to it, I guess, later around those supply challenges, because actually it could be a lot more in terms of, you know, the demand is there, people are ready for the cars, and that's so exciting. I think the key things that we've seen as the challenges are cost. Are there enough charge points? How far can they go? And there's been such this explosion of charge points that have now popped up around the country, and actually then a realization by many people that they can charge at home. So it's so about people talking to each other. So if there are EV drivers talking to each other or listening, I would encourage you to get out and talk to other people as much as you can, because nothing makes it more real than somebody you know and trust talking about them driving the car, how they charge up, etc. And so that's happened, and people see the cars now more on the road. They see the charge points popping up, they take more interest in it, and they kind of inquire and explore. And it's those influences. We often talk about it as, like, you know, the people that used to turn up, they were first with a mobile phone. Then they were probably first with their smartphone, and then first with a smartwatch. And now they're turning up to their barbecue in their EV, telling you about how they saved, you know, £100 a month because they charged at home with their EV last month, rather than, you know, using the petrol car that they've just given up. So all of this is, like, super exciting, and I can see that already. It's really energizing to be here, because there's, you know, people like yourselves, and also like things like the EV Association that are really helping EV drivers get out there and talk about their own experiences. And so we think that will all come as well. But interesting, I think with the US, there's so many different markets. There's not a...
You picked a big one, Texas. That's impressive. I'm very impressed by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we found is that, you know, with those big key concerns, the cost, the charging, the rate, the number of charge points, actually as an energy supplier, we can talk to people in a slightly different way, and we can be like, hey, by the way, do you know that your charging can be significantly cheaper than what you're spending on your petrol and diesel costs? And actually we can make it really easy for you. And actually, as an energy company that people trust, it's like, okay, well, look, we can come and install this charge point for you. We can look after your charging overnight. And actually, why don't we just get you the car as well, end to end, really easy, and just simplify it for them, which we found really, really popular back in the UK.
I really have been talking to people throughout this show, and they have been saying, like, oh, it's so hard to pick the EV, for one, that I want. And then to go through the process. And in my background, I do a lot of product training for automakers, and one of the biggest questions when I'm on an EV program is, like, well, how do I go about, like, I need help, someone help me. Like, this is a big process, and it is a transition, so it's...
You know, it's interesting. When I started doing this in 2017, in the UK, there were 5 EVs that went about 100 miles or more. Only 5, right? A couple of Teslas, the Nissan Leaf, the Renault Zoe, and the BMW i3. I remember them very clearly. Now that you can order over 65 EVs from us.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And to your point, actually, that's a different challenge now. When there was only 5, it's like, well, which is the one that, you know, can work for a family?
Right, yeah,
you know, that doesn't cost £80,000. It's like, you know, it was super simple. Now it's more complicated, but also that's also exciting because now there's probably more likely to be one for you. Whereas actually, if those 5 hadn't suited you, you just didn't really have an option. So the 65 is fantastic. It also means that there's more companies to supply vehicles.
Yes.
So back to that supply chain challenge that we were talking about earlier, we do see long lead times, and you know, for one of our brands, it's even like 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, up to 2 years for one of the brands. So that's one. But the average is probably around about 6 months. If you're factory ordering it, it's like 9 to 12 months. So what we do is we pre-order a bunch of cars that we know are popular. So we order like Teslas, for example, or the MG ZS is a very popular car at the minute in the UK. So we'll go and we'll try and pre-order these vehicles so that even before you come to us, hopefully we've already got it on order, it's been going for a few months, and then you can pick up that order and it shortens the lead time significantly. And then if it is, you know, an unusual case, then we also are running an interim car fleet now. So that actually you can take a different car for a couple of months.
Oh,
and it might be a brand that you've not thought of before, like a Polestar. Maybe you're not as familiar with the Polestar brand, you're quite new to EVs, and it's like, well, you're waiting for the Audi because you know Audi and you trust Audi, but it's going to take a bit longer. Yeah. Sometimes you might take a Polestar in the meantime, for example, and then you actually get to discover new brands.
Yeah.
Now, what we found with that is that for the first cohort of customers that did it, 20% of them actually decided to stay with the interim vehicle.
Really?
Interesting. And proactively asked us. We didn't say, would you like to? They came to us and said, actually, we really like this car. Can we keep this car? Which I thought was also a fascinating shift in terms of like, okay, well, maybe it's not the brand that you're expecting, but you should definitely remain open-minded to some of these newer brands that are coming through where they do have supply and try them out, you know.
Exploratory method. Interesting. That is fascinating. So I want to talk more about that bidirectional charging aspect of it because I think that's so fascinating for people to be able to make a little bit more money off of their investment of a car, which we've never had this in automotive like ever. Like you can actually buy a car and it's an investment at this point that can make you money. So give us a little bit more detail on your guys' plans with that. Chris talked about a little bit, and any other future plans that you see there are potentials to go down paths where customers can get more value out of their either leasing with you guys or, you know, programs with charging and more the value-based incentives.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, what Chris was describing earlier, the Power Loop trial that we've done in the UK. So actually we, started designing this like 5 years ago. At the time, the V2G chargers for your house were like 6 foot tall. You had to sink 2 feet of concrete. I was like, how am I going to sell these? Yeah. Straight after that, there was a Japanese company. They brought out a kind of air conditioning sized unit that was, you still needed 2 people to install it over 2 days. But then over the next couple of years, we're now down to units that kind of this size,
nice and small,
that one person can install in half a day. And this is super exciting. The price has come down, well over 50% as well since we've been doing that, and continues to come down. So we're super excited about that. We've now got 135 people driving their Nissan Leafs using these chargers. And the way the energy system works in the UK, the generators bid in and we all consume that energy. And in the middle sits the national grid. They're the system operator, and they balance it. They make sure that we're getting enough generation at the same time as what's being consumed. Of course, but now we can change that consumption, and we can give back to the grid. So they now are, we for the first time ever, that balancing mechanism that they use, those electric cars are now participating in that as a feature, as a kind of asset that the grid can use to help balance it. And what I think is super exciting is by 2030 we expect there to be 10 million electric cars on the road in the UK. Wow. So it's not that far away. It's like, 8 years, 10 million electric cars on the road. The peak energy consumption in the UK is about 63 gigawatts in the middle of the day. So that's like at tea time when everyone's plugged in and they've got home from their school or whatever and they're watching TV and somebody's cooking, etc. Now the thing is, if you get those 10 million cars and they all plug in at the same time, they literally double the consumption. That takes it to about 77 gigawatts extra needed, so it's more than double. However, alternatively, if they're giving back, they can actually power the whole of the UK at peak time. So by 2030, we're going to have enough cars on the road that we can literally take the whole UK off the grid, power it by electric cars, which I think is so exciting and shows the scale of this opportunity.
Absolutely. I would say I want to get the automakers on board. Automakers, you need to definitely start integrating technology like this because the customers are definitely going to want to.
Definitely. Well, we're starting to see some of the early movers as well that are doing that and they're talking about it because that expensive tech that's on the wall, a lot of that will move into the car.
Yes.
And then it will make it much more available. So we recently announced with this balancing mechanism piece, alongside that, actually that car drivers can save £840 every year by doing this. And so that's a huge amount of money, right? So that, contribution back to their pockets in terms of what they're saving. And so it's a massive amount. And I'm looking over to Claire as well, who's here today in the audience. If anyone's here or just find Claire Miller and look at some of the stuff that she's done in terms of other interviews on this. She goes into a lot of detail. And it's a lot of money that people can save, and it's making a big difference to that grid, particularly as we bring on a lot more renewable energy. And we get a lot more energy independence and much more sustainable. The car is absolutely part of that solution. And it will bring the energy costs down for everyone by being able to have that kind of smart grid.
And that's what a big misconception is that, if we just overload the grid with a bunch of EVs, it's not going to be able to support it. But, it's actually not too far around the corner where it's actually not even going to be the case. It makes the grid more resilient. So I think that's just so fascinating. Can you talk a little bit more about the future trajectory? Where do you see the Octopus Electric Vehicles division going? Because you're starting off in Texas.
Yeah.
Are you going to proliferate more throughout the United States?
Yeah, I think we'd love to. I think our ambition is to make it as easy as possible to make people to make that switch to EV and bringing together the car, the charging, and the energy. And I think what we'll be doing is we'll be doing a lot of learning over the next few months.
Oh, yeah.
And as Octopus Energy starts to expand out as well, we'll be looking to where they're going and seeing how we can also help people in other places as we've got more of the kind of levers to be able to help people as much as we can. So yeah, I think it's super exciting times as we work out exactly how to best help.
So, and many of you guys watching that you might know this, is that Tesla is in the future going to be offering very similar programs where you can get energy back and forth from there. So can you give us some insight on what's the difference between what you guys are doing and what kind of advantages you see with going with a platform like you guys in comparison to some of the competitors like Tesla who are taking this kind of technology in-house?
Well, I think there's a lot of different parts of the puzzle, right? So in terms of being the energy company as well and having a bit of independence there so that you don't feel like you're tied into, say, one specific brand. And we can take that across multiple different brands. So one of the challenges that we've seen so far is around V2G has only really been available with the Nissan Leaf until now. It's the CHAdeMO connector that's been on the Nissan Leaf that has supported it through the standards. Now, as it becomes more available through CCS, we anticipate other companies bringing out that kind of technology. And actually, there's going to be different options in there, and being able to understand them is already what we do. So, you come to us if you want to choose an electric car, we help navigate those 65 different cars a day. But over time, it's like, okay, well, help me think through these different charging options, the vehicle to grid piece, what are the advantages and the disadvantages. And the thing is, if you are just one brand, you can't do the comparison as easily and help people really navigate for the best option for them.
Sure, yeah, and I think the more options, the better. That's how I always hear about it.
We've got a guest question. They're asking
yes.
if you have programs that support multifamily and those kinds of occupancy situations.
Yeah, you probably have a lot of that in the UK too, especially with the on-street parking and things like that. So the question was, what do you guys have for programs for multifamily situations? So I'd love to hear more on that.
Yeah,
good question.
In a minute we have, obviously you can have a couple of chargers plugged in. What's really important actually with any of these technologies as you get more of them, particularly with things like solar and so forth, is making sure that the grid is able to support whatever you're plugging in. So actually what we've done a lot of is working with the local grids so that we can have certain tools to limit the power if needed so that it doesn't cause disruption to the local grid. If there's, let's say you had your solar giving back at the same time as two different electric cars giving back to the grid at the same time, that might be too much for that grid to take at that point. So actually instead, Actually, Claire again. I feel like I'm kind of speaking on her behalf today, and she's actually here, and she's such an expert. But working with the local DNO that in our project, we've created a power limiting tool so that you can have these different technologies, but then it can help limit it for the grid at the right times.
Interesting.
But you can still have both of them, so you can have your solar, you can have multiple different EVs, and then they can start to work in different ways. I should also say there are other people here at the event as well, for people like My Energy, that have kind of hubs and things that go in the home to help balance again the solar, your EV charging and that kind of stuff. And we're seeing a lot of those kind of technologies develop and be launched so that you can have a really smart home with multiple EVs and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big barriers for a lot of people is they don't live in a traditional single family home, or they don't have a driveway to necessarily park in with the EV adoption. So fascinating to hear that there are multiple options that you guys are trying to accommodate in different ways by creating technology that either limits the energy in order to make sure that everyone can charge and everything is still going to be safe and not going to overload anything. So that's pretty neat. We're all out of time. Good. Well, thanks so much for watching, and thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Chris, for joining us today. But thanks for watching, and we're going to have another live stream coming up very shortly with Roger Atkins from EV Outlook. So we'll see you guys real soon, all right? Until next time, drive, fly, ride. Go electric.